Hey yo, welcome back to The King and Giallo and another Rat Hole Burn movie reviews. Ooh, I should have grabbed the movie. Hold on. So I go into these not really like doing research per se. I just watch the movie, but I want to be able to give the director's name. Okay, here we go. All right, it was a 1969 possibly Spanish giallo. I'm not sure if the movie was made with the intent of being a giallo, but the director, so it's The House That Screamed. The director is, and I might butcher this because I'm not the best with like Spanish names, Narciso Ibanez Serrador. Hopefully I said that right. I don't know. But yes, if this, I mean, I bought this movie on Arrow on Blu-ray with the intent that it was a Spanish giallo, and by all intents and purposes, it operated like one, or it operated like a giallo enough. So, yeah, let's get this going. I've got it's called a Brick House, the cigar. So let's get this going, shall we? Make sure I have the page up for the movie, just because I'm probably not going to remember all the names. So I just want to make sure that I get those names right. Okay. All right. Well, The House That Screamed. So 1969 Spanish film. Technically, it's a proto slasher, but I would also throw it in with the proto giallo and Spanish proto giallo at that. It takes place in an all girls boarding school, and the idea is that all these girls are, like delinquents, or they're, no good. So the school is to somewhat reform them, or their parents have all sent them here. And we follow, oh my gosh, I just had her name. Is it Isabel? No, Teresa. I'm going to say Teresa, just so I don't burn myself out with, I'm going to Anglicanize it. Excuse me. So we follow Teresa as she's brought into this school as the newest girl that will be staying there. She's being dropped off by a family friend of her mother's. That's kind of all you really know. That her father's not in the picture. Her mother is, well, you learn a little bit more, but essentially it's just like, well, she's busy. So, before I actually go into the plot, I was just say, I really like this. I really like this. For some people, it might be a little slow, and like a lot of these 1960s giallo films, it's not quite a slasher as some of the other ones are, but there is still a mystery going on, and there's good elements. There's a little bit of gothic elements in there. Apparently, this movie in part inspired Suspiria and Pieces, and I can really see the ties to Suspiria. Just, get rid of the supernatural stuff. You know what? If people want to, argue with me and say that Suspiria is a giallo, I'll tell them, no, watch The House That Screamed. That's actually that type of movie, but as an actual giallo. So, okay, so Teresa joins the school. Immediately, you see, before she enters in, the lady who runs the school with an iron fist, Senora, oh man, Fornu. I'm just gonna call her Senora F. Senora F. She's giving a lesson, and one of the girls is like just not being present mentally. She's what was her name? Catalina. So Catalina is just not writing down what she's supposed to be, and the senora calls her out, like, Do you not want to write today? Is this boring? Do you, you know? And the girl is very obstinate, and this is apparently an ongoing thing with her. And she kicks her out, and then she gets called down. The senora gets called down to meet with the new girl, and she meets with her and the gentleman who dropped her off, and she gives her a tour. And like 3 times during the tour, the girl picks up on the fact that somebody is following them, somebody is spying on them. So she'll hear something, and then she'll catch a glimpse of like a hand up on like a window over the door, and then they go through like the greenhouse, and someone knocks over a potted plant and hides behind a table. And okay, so that's going on. And then while the senora and the man, like, you know, work on the what would you call it, like the admin type stuff, they send the girl. They're like, oh, why don't you go have something to eat? You'll join everybody else later. So she goes, and she's eating stuff, and she's got like little cookies, little biscotti type things, and the lady feeding her is like, you know, do you like it? And she's like, yeah, no, it's good. I just, you know, I just don't really want to eat these right now. She's like, well, you should probably hold on to them because there's not going to be a lot for supper. And there's a great transition where when it cuts back to her, all of a sudden it like pulls out, and she's already at supper. So I was like, ooh, the directing is really good. The directing and editing are really good in this movie. And yeah, so you can tell these other girls are kind of famished. So she starts passing out these cookies to them, and they're just like, oh, fuck yeah. And then they go to, I'm just making sure I'm not glossing over anything. They're done with supper. They go to, they're going to bed, and they basically get like locked in their room. So they go in there, and the senora calls out 3 girls. One of these girls, again, I'm gonna look up the name. I want to say her name is Isabel. Or Isabel might be. Oh, it's Irene. I'm sorry. Isabel is another girl. Irene. Irene is one of these people that's kind of like the teacher's pet. Although there is another girl who is actually more like teacher's pet in terms of like being, you know, the good academic type. This girl is the teacher's pet because she basically is like her lackey. She'll do the things that the senora tells her to do. And so the senora calls these 3 girls in, and they go into this like hidden room, or not really hidden, but they go into this room where the one girl was sent away to. I'm so sorry. Catalina was sent to. And she essentially asks the girl, she's like, are you going to be better? Are you going to go in there and apologize? And the girl's continuing to be obstinate. And so she's like, well, you know what's going to happen. I don't want to do this, but you're giving me no choice. And she's like, okay, well, take your clothes off. And the girl says, make me. And so she has the 3 girls that she brought in basically like rip her clothes off. And then they hand her, then they take a whip, and they start whipping this girl. And it keeps cutting back to the girls in the bedroom who are all praying, and it'll cut back to the girl getting whipped. And again, editing and the directing is really, really good. And then so a reason to bring up Irene, you can tell she really enjoys the domination, the torture, all that stuff. And she sends the girls back. Sorry, I got bugs out here. She sends the girls back, and they go to sleep. And then the next day, because Catalina's still not with everybody, Teresa is selected to help this other girl make the beds. It's supposed to be Catalina's job that week, but you know she's not there at this moment. And so, as Teresa's making the beds with this girl's kind of giving her the lowdown of the place. And she's asking her, like, so have you got a boyfriend? No. Oh, at least have you ever been with a guy? No. Okay, well, that seems to be the hardest thing for most of the girls around here, is that, you know, some of them have had boyfriends and there's no guys around here, so they're all kind of going stir crazy. Oh, well, not exactly. There's actually the Senora's son lives here, like, but he's like, kept away. But he's always kind of going around following the girls. And I'd forgotten this when the Senora sends all the girls back to bed the night before. She goes into her son's room. She's basically like, "Hey, what were you doing? Why were you walking around like following us?" And he's like, "That wasn't me." Okay, so now we're like, either it was him or it was someone else. And if it's someone else, then who the hell is it? Anyways, back with the girls. And so we learn from this girl who's talking to her while they're making the beds that this guy will come by like once a month or once every couple weeks. And he brings like firewood or something, and each of the girls will get the chance, like one girl at a time, will get the chance to go out there and meet with him. And they don't really explicitly say it, but you get the idea that they're kind of hooking up with this guy, which they're all just like, sex craved, or they're just like hungry for something. And the girl telling her is like, "I'm excited because I'm supposed to be next." And she tells, when she's talking about the Senora's son, she says, do you know Isabella? Isabella is the blonde girl who, she's actually not blonde. I don't know why they called her blonde, but she was like, she's been like sneaking off and seeing him, like. So yeah, she's the only girl who probably wouldn't run away because the guy that she likes is actually living here. And we then cut to like the girls doing ballet, doing bar work, and we see the girl Isabella. And when she gets a moment, she sneaks out, and then she meets with Louise is the boy's name, and they meet like in like this boiler room kind of area, and he gives her like his dessert that he saved, and they're talking romantic, and he's saying like how he wants for them to like be able to leave here, and he needs to be able to get away from his mother. And as the movie goes on, there's a very strong Norman Bates psycho type relationship where the mother is very babying her son, and keeps telling him like, you need to stay away from these girls are no good. A lot of these girls were like either are or were bound to be prostitutes, and you gotta you'll find a good girl, a girl who's like me, who loves you and is not messed up, essentially. And back with Teresa, she ends up getting called in to have this like little, here's a quick little throwaway thing or something that's a good setup. She's in the like gardening class or whatever, and she sees this creepy guy outside on the other side of the class, like staring at her. And they mention that he works here. He works like the boiler. And then she gets called out. She gets called to meet with the three girls, Irene being the ringleader. And they sit her down, they make her tea, and they start questioning her. And they're like, "You were making the beds alone earlier with so-and-so. What did she tell you?" She's like, she just told me about the place and da-da-da. And they're like, "Did she tell you about the boy who comes here?" And she was like, "Yeah." She's like, "What did she say?" "Oh, she just said that she's, supposed to be the next one to see him." "Did she talk about me?" "No." I'm pretty sure that's a lie. I don't remember, but yeah. So she's already hiding things from these girls, and Irene tells Teresa like she starts like washing her hands because she just came in from the greenhouse, and so her hands are all covered in dirt. She's like, "Hey, I want you to be able to trust me. I want you to be a good girl." And she starts like washing her hands, and the way she's washing her hands is it's not totally like implying that there might be some sort of lesbian thing. It's like a little bit, but I wouldn't say it overtly is. But there's a lot of things that this movie does that it's like kind of a nudge, but not like this is exactly what this is type of thing. Like, I could see a lot of people watching that and saying, I didn't get that impression at all. And I could see some people watching and saying, oh, that's definitely what it is. So then we have this scene where the girls are going to bed again, and Teresa? No, I'm sorry. The names. Isabella finds a note from Louise, basically saying like, "Hey, meet me out in the greenhouse later tonight." And so, when all the girls are sleeping, she sneaks out and makes her way into the greenhouse, and she's calling out to Louise quietly, and then all of a sudden someone sneaks up behind her. And I put this on my Instagram story. Believe you me, this is probably, of all the Giallo films I've seen, and even of all the slasher films I've seen, this is the most artistic kill I've ever seen, hands down. And there's a lot of kills in other movies that do things a little better or a little bit more engaging or this or that or graphic, but the way this is shot and edited, it's like you see her walking away from the camera, her back to the camera, walking further into the greenhouse, and all of a sudden a figure comes up, and then this figure comes up behind her, and it's like all of a sudden, like they come up, grab her, and you see the knife, and then it cuts to like an overlay of her in the same position as the person stabbing her, and you're seeing like then this overlaid image of like the knife hitting her, and then you see a third overlay of like the knife coming out and like blood coming out, and I think there's even a fourth overlay, and it's just fantastic the way it's shot. It's so artistic. The music changes once she starts getting attacked, and then as she gets let go and is basically dropping dead, the music slows down, like someone actually slowed it down, where it actually has like this like vibe to it. It's so impressive. It's just so like, wow, I've never seen someone do a kill like that. And everybody assumes she ran away because in the last several weeks, they mentioned that 3 girls have run away. And so now Isabella would be the 4th girl that's run away. We then have, I don't remember which of these scenes comes first. I want to say, okay, I think I know which of these scenes comes first. So the Senora realizes that, the girl's is gone. And so she mentions to this other woman who's kind of like helps run the place, but she's way nicer. We got to get more keys. Get new keys. How many keys? Get 3 keys. 1 for you, 1 for me, and 1 for Irene. And she's like, are you sure we should give 1 to Irene? Like, isn't it possible that she let Isabella out? And she's like, no, it's not. 3 keys. And then the woman tells the Senora that, I can get that done today, but it's Tuesday, so it's bath day. Who's going to do that? And the Senora says, I will. And so she goes in, and this is probably the most erotic scene, because there's no nudity in the movie, unless you count nudity what you see through a girl in like a whitey, whatever you call those, a bathing gown that's all wet and you can see through it. Other than that, there's no like nudity. But again, this is one of those scenes that I'm talking about that's like kind of has like lesbian implications, but it's not strongly like explicitly saying it. But the Senora's watching them. One of the girls like takes her thing off, and she's like, "You're not supposed to like be undressed." And she's like, "Oh, but I just need to wash my back. Can you help me wash my back?" And, so there's all these weird things going on. And then Louise, while all the girls are showering, sneaks into the boiler room, sneaks around the boiler man, and then creeps into this like area behind the walls where all the pipes are, and he's then starts spying on all the girls. And then as they're finishing up, the boiler man notices like the hatch has been like open, so he just basically closes it and doesn't even check if anybody's in there. And then he leaves, and so the kid is just trapped in there. And by the way, this kid's like 16, 17. You know, he's not like a child. And so one by one, the girls are leaving. Our main girl is the last one, and as she's essentially alone, she's like just finishing up, but she's alone. She hears the guy behind the walls, and he's like, "Help me, please help me." And she finds him. She sneaks off, finds him, lets him out, and now she starts kind of seeing him. And again, nothing is really like, oh, they're hooking up or anything. It's just very kind of innocent. She said she's never really been with a guy, so this is all new territory for her. Then we get the scene. Again, I might actually be out of order with some of these scenes in the middle of the movie, but I think that's fine. The dude comes to visit, the guy that, you know, all the girls get to visit with, and so he shows up. He leaves with his, I think it's his dad or some other like guy who's a little older than him, and he's basically like, all right, well, I'm gonna go, you know, do the thing. And they're like, all right, well, you know, see you when you're done. And so he goes into the barn or something, and then the girl who knows it's her turn, she gets, I think Irene kind of gets her excused. She, you know, tells the senora, oh, like they're making a fruit compote, and someone needs to go check on it. You should send so and so. So it's interesting that, like, I want to say that's Irene. It's interesting that even though this girl is like kind of a bitch and a tyrant, a little tyrant in training, a little protege of the senora, she also kind of does sometimes look out for the girls, or sometimes do, you know, something cool for them. So this girl goes out, she goes to the kitchens, and then she excuses herself from the woman who's, you know, preparing everything. She's like, okay, well, it looks like you've got it under control. I'm gonna just head out right here. And she's like, all right. So this girl goes out, walks across like the lawn, goes into the barn or whatever it is, meets with the guy, and then he immediately kind of starts like ravaging her, but she, you know, she's into it, and she starts like giggling, and he like tosses her onto the hay bale, and hay falls all over her, and she's just giggling. And then again, great editing, cuts back to all the girls who are still in this room doing like arts and crafts, and you can just hear her laugh overlaid of them doing their activities, and they're all getting very like annoyed that it's not them. And so one girl is like sewing, and she's just like, you know, man, another girl's threading a needle. Like they're all doing something, they can all hear the laugh, and they all just have this look on their face like, that bitch. And then the scene ends, and one of the girls is like pricked herself. Now she's bleeding. Okay. Then we get this scene where we have Luis outside reading, and he's like fucking with an anthill. He's like picking up an ant, and he's kind of laying it on his book, and he's kind of doing this thing where the ant's trying to go this way, and he traps it, and then the ant's going this way, and he like traps it. And then he just closes the book on on the ant. And I'm like, okay, so he's a psychopath? Is that what they're trying to tell us? Also, I will say this. In that scene where the girl gets killed, you can briefly see someone behind her, and it looks like they've got black hair. Dark hair, at least. Like long, dark hair. Unless it's a fake Shemp, unless that's not actually supposed to be, you know, who the killer is. It's just, you know, the person who's being the killer for that moment. But Louise has like blonde hair, so you're like, okay, so it's probably not him. He's probably just like a red herring. It's probably not the boiler man, because he was like bald or balding. I don't think it's the senora, because she had kind of like, you know, brownish, her hair was kind of withering. It was kind of stringy a little bit, or, you know, so you're like, it's probably not her. The main person that jumps out, even though this person is a red herring, you're like, okay, well, it looks like Irene. It looks like it would be like the protege, like girl, who probably killed. So that's what, at that point in the movie, I'm like, okay, so I think everybody's a red herring. I think it's Irene. Louise is called in, and he's talking with his mom, and his mom calls him out for, like, you've been meeting with a girl. He's like, no, I haven't. She's like, yes, you have. I heard. Someone told me. And he's like, who? And she's like, doesn't matter. It's you know, you've been doing this. I told you to stay away from these girls. And then we have this very Norman Batesy scene where she's just like, you know, I told you, like, you know, none of those girls are any good for you. You'll find a girl like me, but younger. Really heavy-handed with like the suffocating mother trope, that whole, you know, thing. And she's like, you know, really babying her son, and then she kind of like kisses him on the cheek, and you're like, oh, okay, that was a little close. Talks to him a little bit more about how, like, you know, you'll find a girl like me, someone who will love you forever and take care of you. And then she kisses him like kind of on the lips in that area, and you're like, okay. And then let's see, I just want to make sure I'm not getting too out of order. Then we have this scene where again the trio of girls calls in Teresa, and they're like, we want to talk to you. So they bring her to their like secret hangout, which is, they're like, they got a clubhouse, like it's in this room, and then it's through this room, and then you have to knock a certain way, and then they'll let you in. And they've got like a drawing of like naked women or something, like they've got a weird drawing up there, and they start questioning her again, and they're forcing her to like serve them tea as they're talking, and they're asking her about her family, and they get her to confess that like she doesn't know her dad is dead, most likely. And then they're like, what about your mother? And then she's like, no, that is my mom. And they're like, are you sure? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, okay, what does your mom do? And she's becoming uncomfortable, and they're just like, what does your mom do? She's like, my mom is a singer. And they're like, oh, a singer, okay, where does she sing? Or like what type of singer is she? And she's like, you know, she's a singer. She sings like a, you know, in like a place. And like, what's the place? And she tells them it's like Tivoti or something. And they're like, oh, what kind of place is that? What is it? An opera? Is it a theater? Is it a? And she finally admits, she's like, it's a cabaret. And they're like, oh, so your mom's a prostitute? Because only prostitutes, you know, work at cabarets. And she's like, no. And they're like, yes. And they start like terrorizing her, or at least Irene does. And she's just grabbing her, and, you know, the girl's screaming no, and she's screaming yes, she is a prostitute. And she's like, I am, as well as all my other roles here, I'm in charge of the correspondence, so I can see this type of information, like information on the people who they could be writing to, who could be writing them back, what the nature of the things are. I know this information. And earlier, the first night that Teresa arrived, the moment when the Senora had pulled the three girls out and they were going to, like, you know, fucking beat up, what was her name, Catalina? The girls kind of surrounded her, and they're like, oh, tell us about yourself. What's your name? Who are you? And she's like, oh, my name is Teresa. And then they asked to see her clothes. And so she opens up her clothes, and the girls start like taking her clothes and, like, you know, holding them up, pretending like, oh, how would this look on me? And one of them finds like a, oh my gosh, what do you call it? It's a little brassiere, I don't know, the little tight thing that you know, women would wear to make their bodies look really, really petite. And this is particularly like a old school cabaret one. Like, it's very flashy, obviously meant to be worn, to be seen. It's not one of the ones that just goes underneath. It's just holding you in. It's like, no, this is supposed to be the only thing you're wearing, or at least on top. Back to the moment now where the girls are terrorizing her. They're like, no, we saw your mom. We saw those clothes that you said were your mom's. And then they're like, they pull out the whatever it's called. Again, excuse me. I'm so sorry. I don't know all these things right now. And they're just like making her. They're like, put it on. She's like, I don't want it. And they're like, put it on and sing for us. And she's like, I don't know any songs. And she's like, oh, come on. Your mother must have taught you some songs, or she must have, sang some things at the house. Put it on. Sing for us. And she puts it on. They like force it on her, and it's like not even done. It's like barely on her. They didn't like close it all up, and she's like trying to sing, but she's just like falling apart. And they're just like, sing for us. And then all of a sudden they hear something like, oh, she gets saved by the bell. It's literally like a bell for class. And so they're like, okay, let's go. And they kind of like disperse before they get caught. And then you see Teresa the rest of the day, like in like supper, and she's just like she looks like she's been crying all day. And she decides this is like, fuck this, I gotta get out of here. And so it's nighttime. Oh, another little detail. When they couldn't find Isabella, the Senora had told her sidekick lady, when she told her about the keys, she also said, lock all the windows on the floor, on the ground floor. And she was like, but this isn't a prison. And she was like, well, we're gonna make it one. Okay, so you already know now. It's gonna be hard to escape. Okay, so cut back again. The night Teresa wakes up, all the girls are asleep. She starts packing her shit, or as much shit as she can take. Go over to Irene. Irene's eyes open, so she's awake too. Teresa goes to the window, and she sneaks out the window and kind of makes her way around to the next window, so she can then get in and then be like moving about the halls. Once she sneaks out the window, Irene gets up, and Irene has a key. So she unlocks the bedroom door, she goes out, and then before Teresa can get back in, Irene goes down, unlocks the front door, goes out, closes it, leaves it unlocked, and then goes and stands out, and like she's gonna catch her leaving. So Teresa's moving about the house, but she doesn't just leave. She goes to Louise's room, and she tells him, like, I'm leaving. And he's like, why? What's going on? She's just like, I just can't be here anymore. Like, I just can't do it. And he breaks his little piggy bank, and he gives her his money, and he's like, it's not much, but, it'll help. And she's like, thank you. I will pay you back. And it keeps cutting to Irene outside in the rain, just like waiting to she's watching the front door from like a good distance, and she's just waiting for the door to open. Keeps cutting back, and we see Teresa then. She's not going out the front door because she assumes it's locked. So she goes through into another room, and she's preparing to sneak out the window. And you see someone sneak into the room quietly. And right when Teresa is about to leave, all of a sudden you see someone come up right behind her with a knife, and then all of a sudden it like freezes. And I actually wasn't sure if the Blu-ray was like skipped or not, but I was like, that's brilliant. So it's all of a sudden just like froze for like a second or 2 seconds of just like the knife at her throat. And then her throat gets slashed. I was just like, dude. I mean, okay, so it's very Psycho in terms of everything that it had been setting up, and then the fact that you're going to kill off the main character like in the second act. I mean, Psycho did it in the first act. Holy shit! I've seen a few Giallo movies that kill off the main character in the second act, like So Sweet, So Perverse does it. There's a few other movies that do it, but like, wow! It was very, very well done. So they had 2 kills in this movie, both very memorable, very well done, way more focused on the art form and how to do it versus indulging in like the violence or the shock value. I mean, the shock value was definitely there, but it was, like I just said, the directing, editing on this movie was so good, and it, like, the stuff just didn't jump out at you like Umberto Lenzi's films, his Giallo movies. He just throws the style at you, and sometimes you're like, bro, you didn't need to zoom for that. You didn't need to do a crash zoom there. Like, stop throwing those everywhere. But this movie. Like, you almost don't even notice it until it's something that's just so brilliant that you're like, wow, that was great. So anyways, Teresa's dead, and then we cut to Irene. She's still outside. You're like, okay, so it's not Irene. And then at this point, I'm like, okay, so is it Louise? Or is it his mother? Or is it the second in command, the one, like, you know, lady who works there who doesn't really say anything? I'm not really thinking it's you know, the guy who works in the boiler, or, you know, I'm just like, whatever. Like, he was kind of a half-assed red herring that they were just like, oh, he's a creepy guy. But I'm like, okay, well, who the fuck is it? Irene goes in, searches. She's like, where the hell did she go? She finds her Teresa's pack outside, and she goes inside, and she goes to that room, finds the window, you know, kind of open or unlocked. She's like, oh, what the okay, she's not here. She didn't leave. You know, her shit was out there. Maybe she did leave and she just, you know, left her stuff. And then she finds, like, footprints. And she goes in and tells the Senora Teresa escaped. And she kind of has this weird dismissive attitude about it. Like, oh, did she now? Really? And then the girl and the woman, they're talking, and Irene is very like, something's going on here. Like, 5 girls now have run away in the last, like, 3 weeks. Something is wrong. And she's like, well, you know, they run away. And she's like, yeah, but I'm in charge of the correspondence, and none of their family have written. And she's like, well, they probably ran home. And they're like, yeah, but usually when the girls run away, the family sends them back, or they at least write saying, like, you know what, we've decided to, you know, just not send her back. There's something. And she's like, well, I don't know. You know, what do you want me to say? Maybe they didn't run home. Maybe the parents don't know. Maybe the family doesn't know that they've left. And so Irene is, like, pointing out, like, why are you acting like this? Why don't you give a shit? And she then threatens the Senora, like, things are going to change around here, or I'm going to tell them, you know, what we did with, you know, Catalina and this, that, and the other, and, like, blah, 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 blah. And Irene, or the Senora's like, give me your key. I'm like, I can't trust you anymore. Give me your key. She gives her a key. And, but there's still somewhat of an understanding, like, don't cross me, or I'm going to tell the other girls what's going on, or, you know, that something is going on around here and you're not doing anything. So then we see, like, the next day, and it's like back at the lecture class, and again, the one girl, Catalina, is like not paying attention, can't give a shit, which is funny because we saw her get like whipped, you know, hardcore in a scene earlier in the movie, and you'd think she'd be reformed, and she's still just like, nah, you can't break my spirit. And so the Senora is kind of like, you don't feel like writing again? And all of a sudden she looks over, and Irene is just like staring at her like, you're not going to do anything. And she lets it go. She just lets it go. And then they're doing like crafts later, and she's, you know, like telling this one girl, like, oh, you're doing well. Tells this other girl, like, you could be doing better. That's not a great job. And she finds another girl, and she's like, not bad. And then she goes over to Irene, and she's about to criticize Irene, and Irene just looks at her. she just like walks away. She's like, I'm not going to say anything. And then that night, Irene is basically like, I'm going to leave. Like something's going on. And so she goes to leave that night. And so make sure I get the sequence right. She's going to leave, and her plan was to go out the front door. Like, she and her girls were kind of like planning this escape throughout the day. Like, okay, so this window is going to be like this. Da 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 da. They never lock this door. Da 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 da. This should all be fine. Well, during her breakout, the door is locked. So she's got to find another way around. So she's trying to find another way around, and then suddenly the senora, hears someone moving around the house, and she calls out. Oh, I think she was also summoned. She was actually summoned to meet with the senora, and she's just like, fuck that, I'm going to escape right now. And so once the senora is like, Irene? Irene? She goes out to look for her. Irene, fucking hides. She takes off somewhere. You don't know where. And then we're following the senora, and she's kind of, looking for Irene. And then there's like this spiral staircase, like one of those ones that's just like meant to just like it's like it was installed. It's not really like a built into the house, like one of those metal ones. And it's like goes up into darkness. It kind of looks like The Haunting. And so you're following the senora. She's going up, and then she's in like a closet, or not a closet, an attic area. And then it's like all of a sudden she hears something. She looks over, and there's like a rocking horse that's moving. Very well done. Very well done. It's just amazing how like good this movie is with this spooky, scary, stuff for 1969. So she gets up there. She's in the room. She's walking around, and she finds Irene kind of like sitting in a corner. She goes over, and Irene is just kind of like presumably dead. And she's like finds blood on her. She's like, what? And she goes to like lift her to take her out. Irene's like fucking hands are cut off, and she's just like, and so she's going to she's trying to leave, or she's just freaking out. She doesn't know where to go, and she notices movement down at the end of the room. Okay, she sees movement. She's gonna get to the bottom of this. She's kind of scared, but she's also kind of like about to, gonna do something right. She goes in, and who is it? She sees Louise, her son, and he's basically like, "Oh, mother, come, like, check this out. Like, look, I'm almost done." And she goes into this room, and he's got what, like, almost looks like an operating table, like there's like clearly like a body under wraps. And he says, "I was just missing the hands." And he was like, Irene has strong hands. They were perfect. And the mother is just like, and so you find out as Louise is talking that like he's been killing the girls. And he's been inspired by his mom saying that he needs to find a, young woman who's like her. And so he's been killing these girls and taking parts of them. So he was like, oh, this girl has your hair. That girl had your eyes. This girl has strong hands like you. And he like pulls the cover back. You just see it's just like a rotting corpse. It's not like, preserved in any way. And so the senora, the mom starts freaking out. And he's like, yeah, the only thing I need now is for her to be loving and caring as you are. So I want you to talk to her and just like, teach her like how to be like that. And he just locks her in. And she starts screaming for him like, Louise. He just sits outside the door and he's just smiling. And it just like is a close up on him. And then it cuts to credits. Wow. Okay, so when it was revealed that it was Louise, I was like a tad disappointed. I was like, when a movie in a giallo will give you like a red herring, but like they kind of are almost giving you a lot right away where you're like, okay, so it can't be that person, So like, first you're like, okay, well, is he the person following, like spying on the girls? Like, the girls all think so. The girls all say they've seen him doing it, and like the mother knows he's been doing it. But he says, no, it's not me. You're like, maybe it is someone else. And then the scenes that he has with some of the girls one-on-one, with Isabella and with Teresa, are very sweet and very innocent and very much like, we got to, like, we should run away together type of stuff. And you're like, okay, so he's all normal. But like, there's clearly something up with him because the mom has said, like, I'm sorry, like, I don't want you being outside, it's too humid out, like, you have asthma, or you used to have really bad asthma, and so, like, I need to try to protect you, and, I'm sorry, I wish this could be like a school that you could, be with more boys your own age. So there are the definite, hints there that, like, he's susceptible to just being not well. He's not surrounded by peers. His mother is overbearing. He doesn't have any healthy relationships. Well, he does kind of have healthy relationships with some of the girls, but he's not really being fostered to do that. He's kind of going behind his mother's back to do it. So I felt it didn't totally 100% add up. It did enough. And like a lot of these movies, sometimes, like, they just kind of haphazardly throw something at you. This didn't feel like they just threw it at you last minute. As I said, I was kind of thinking it was going to be the Senora's second in command, but the lady was just too nice, so it wouldn't have made sense. And there was really nothing. It wasn't like, she was being abused or being mistreated by anybody, so that really wouldn't have made sense. So Louise did make sense. I was just kind of like, I thought I'd ruled him out long ago. But the fact that he was building like a freaking Bride of Frankenstein, that was pretty good. That was, and I can't recall ever seeing something like that in a Giallo movie. Maybe a slasher. Oh, Pieces. But that was really good. So yeah, the writing in this movie was really good. I watched the extended version of the movie, and so I don't know what scenes were added, what scenes, what moments were extended. I know one moment that was extended in the scene where the three girls bring in Teresa and they start, like, taunting her about her mother being a prostitute. I know there was one moment in there for like 20 seconds, or like maybe it was more like 10 seconds, that was extended because Irene was suddenly speaking English and she had an English voice actor. It wasn't like the character started speaking English. It was like she just started talking. She suddenly had an English accent, and it was just like, where'd that come? I know that was a bad accent, but that was kind of the way she was talking. But this was good. This was a really good movie. I recommend it if you are a Giallo fan. I recommend it. Spoilers galore, but yeah, this is one of those Giallo movies that it's not like, it might be a little slow, might be a bit of a slow burn. So some people might be like, it was a little boring, but the writing was really good. It wasn't, again, I have a problem with these Giallo movies that are kind of like Les Diaboliques, and they're like, is this person crazy? Did that person really die? Or did they fake their own death? And you're like, I fucking hate, it's just like, how many times can you redo that plot? But, then every once in a while you get one that's like very well written, very well directed, very well edited, and Libido, I remember being one of those ones that just kind of came off as like, wow, that's really clever. So yeah, I really like this. I guess you could say it's like a Spanish Psycho mixed with Suspiria and Pieces. Yeah, I don't really know what else to say about it. The acting was really good. I would love to watch this with my friend who is Spanish, like Spain Spanish. My friend's mother is from Spain, and the only reason why I make that distinction is because I have a lot of friends who speak Spanish. Some are Mexican, some are from different countries, and each country in Latin America has its own different like dialect and way of speaking. And then when you get to like old school Spanish from Spain, that's its own thing too. I mean, they're all Spanish, but like yeah, so I just would like someone who actually knows that way of speaking, like, Madrid and Barcelona. I want their opinion of, like, so how good do you think this acting is? Because I thought the acting was really good. And yeah, I mean, I was interested. That's another thing, is I was watching it, I was really interested to see what was going on, who it was. I was trying to figure it out. Like I said, the movie just kind of pulled the rug out from me. Like, I didn't think they were going to go with it was the son, but like a lot of these Giallo movies, when I don't guess correctly, I'm like, well, I guess all the pieces were there. I just kind of decided, I think the movie's going to try and do this instead, and logically, it was probably the best choice. So, yeah. Oh, the other thing, the Senora, you understand that she's stern towards the girls, but she's not like evil. So, after she has the other girls whip, I forget her name, Catalina. She tells her, like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do this, but you're undermining me and disrespecting me in front of the girls, and I can't lose that respect from the girls. If you're going to be doing this, I have to punish you, and I don't want to be punishing you. Like, can't we just get along? Like, I your parents don't want me to send you back, but can you just please, like, just go along, like, for fuck's sake? So you get that she's, like, not totally terrible. Like, and what I think is really interesting is this movie, you're shifting who you're following. Like, the case of the Scorpion's Tail also does this, where you're all of a sudden, now you're following this character, now you're following this character. And I think this movie did a good job of making you empathize with these characters. So first, you care about Teresa. You come to the school with her, and she's very sweet. I'm not going to say she seems sweet. She is very sweet. And then when she gets killed, it's like, dude, what? And then you're following Irene, and Irene, after the scene where she was, like, berating Teresa, you're just like, what a bitch. And you kind of would like something to happen to her. But they showed that she has this compassionate side, and so you start very easily, you're able to then transfer over to her. I could see some people being like, no, fuck her, like, I don't like her. I think the movie did a good job of showing that, like, these people have dimensions. It's not the most fleshed out, like an HBO series where you see good, the bad, the 50 Shades of Grey with these people, but there was at least enough dimensions where you could see that the people that were bad or would behave badly, you could kind of see why they were acting like that. Like, for the Senora, it really made sense. And then for Irene, you can kind of see, like, she's just trying to fit in. She's just trying to, she wants to leave this place with something. And she just found that this was the best thing for her. I mean, it gets her out of being punished. She gets some authority. She gets some freedom to actually have a key and roam around if she wants to. So you kind of see why she did it. And then once Teresa goes missing, you see a different side of her where she's suddenly like, no, like, we can't just terrorize these people, like, these girls, which is funny because, as like I said, she kind of was being a bully, but she all of a sudden just, like, snaps out of that, and it's just like, something's going on here, and, like, this isn't safe. This isn't, like, we actually have you have a responsibility to these girls, and if you're not going to take care of them, well, shit, I can't do it, so I'm going to get out of here. And then when you find her dead, or when she sneaks off, and then we're following the Senora, again, we've already seen enough of her to know that, I don't know. Well, anyways, yes, it was a very good movie. I can't say anything was lacking. It went in a different direction, kind of, than I thought, but I mean, it stayed in the house, so that's that. But yeah, I wasn't sure what I was expecting, but I can definitely say I liked this more than I expected. I didn't think it was going to be this like, ooh, that's good, that's original. So I'm happy with that. I'm happy with the purchase. You can find this on, how did I say, Arrow? You can find this on Arrow for DVD, Blu-ray. I got the Blu-ray. It's a good movie. So King and Giallo recommends. I'm going to end this Rat Hole Burn movie reviews. I've been doing this outside for almost an hour, so yeah. This is Tanner Leeser for The King and Giallo, and nothing else. Let's see you next time. See you at the next Rat Hole Burn movie review.